Today, guys, on the Leadership to Wealth, we've got a special guest. He's 30 years. He's a CEO with 30 years, been in commercial real estate. He's the CEO of SVN Rock Advisors, and he has been helping a lot of developers, especially in the area of commercial real estate, rental apartment buildings, things like that. But we're going to be talking all things commercial real estate, as well as, most importantly, some of the highs and lows of what it's like to be in that industry. Our guest today, Derek Lobo. Derek, good to have you on.
Great to be here, and I look forward to some great questions, some great conversation, and sharing with your people some of the things that we've learned in our lives.
I love it. I love it. I mean, we're doing the black shirt brother connection.
How did that happen? So. They're not going to be able to tell us apart.
That's right. That's right. Which we won't go any further than that. But Derek, let's just kick it off. You've been in commercial real estate for so many years.
Yes.
Why commercial real estate? What you got into that world?
That's such a great question. By profession, I'm a metallurgist. That's the engineering of steel.
Oh.
And I used to work for Canada's largest steelmaker, a company called DeFasco, right? Great company. I loved working there. And I recognized that all my fellow steelworkers made a great industrial wage and they all had money. So at a relatively young age, in my 20s, I started raising money with my fellow steelworkers. So I formed some limited partnerships where I was a general partner and they were the limited partners. And I raised money from them. I started buying apartments and I bought 100 units, with all these steelworker guys.
Yeah.
But when I got in the business, I looked at, and I'm an apartment guy, like I'm a commercial real estate guy, but I've got a very narrow niche, I want to say this respectfully, but in 1987, 1988, when I started, I saw the biggest, worst industry I've ever seen in my life. So you have these buildings worth $20 million being managed by a guy being paid $14,000 a year. We had rent controls. Buildings were always full. It was almost like the passport office. Hey, if you don't like the service here, go somewhere else, right?
Yes.
So I thought to myself, what if I left the steel mill? A bunch of other things happened. Like I wrote some books on the legislation for rental housing. I owned some apartments, and so I got an education there. But after looking at the business, I thought to myself, man, this is the largest, most unsophisticated industry I've ever seen. So Neil, I can't go to Microsoft and turn it around. Okay. But I could come to the apartment industry and help apartment owners run their buildings better, be more efficient, make more money, create training and careers for people in the business. And so one day, after a series of things happened, I found myself in the apartment business, right?
Okay, yeah.
And that was a good 37 years ago. Now, as time went on, I kept finding more and more niches in the business, right? And look, the narrower the niche, the bigger the opportunity. Fair enough? So I'm going to ask you guys, your listeners, do you want to be a lake 1 mile wide and 1 inch deep? Or do you want to be the Marianas Trench?
Yes.
Fair enough? So I always chose to go after high value, low volume targets. Fair enough?
Okay.
So I wasn't looking at making $1 a million times. I was looking at making $100,000 10 times to get to $1 million, right?
Yes.
And so I got in the apartment business. I provided a number of services over the years where I really got to understand the business. And then it dawned upon me that I was almost in a position, Neil, to predict who was going to buy and who was going to sell. So at age 50, I opened up a brokerage firm. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got 25 employees today. And so I started selling apartments. This is what I do. I sell apartment buildings and the big ones, right?
Yes.
Whenever I meet my aunts and uncles, they go, "Oh, you sell real estate? What's going to happen with the price of housing?" I go, no, not that kind of. I don't know what's going to happen with the price of housing. I can tell you something about apartments or not. You know what I mean? Right.
I saw a house I saw a house over here. Do you think it's a good deal?
Exactly. You're right. Or yeah, exactly. So I got in the apartment business,
No
and
problem.
then even at that whole idea of getting narrower and narrower, I reckon there's a lot of good brokers in the business. There's some excellent people who are apartment brokers throughout Canada. I do not want to go head to head with those guys competing with them. Okay. So I focused in on new apartment construction. Doesn't mean in 5 years or 10 years I'm still going to be doing this, but I focused on new apartment construction. And basically, what we did is we spent our time teaching developers how to build apartments. Okay, so they already know how to construct it, but unit size, unit mix, that kind of stuff, financing. So we created this process of helping people build apartments. So if you were a hotel developer, how do you pivot to apartments? If you were a condo guy. And we created 9 steps, wrote a bunch of books on the top, right from land acquisition to disposition. And because I did that, we're in a position now to sell the buildings when they're built. Yeah, Neil, I call it the 5-year listing pitch. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it takes that long from when you buy the land to when it's ready to sell. Right. That's kind of my story as to how I got into the business.
So then the question that I'd love to ask off of that is, what is the real barrier for people to get into commercial real estate? Because I know that it's not really it's not about money. You can always find money. So what's the real barrier when it comes to commercial real estate?
So as an investor or a developer?
I guess more as an investor, because as an investor, like let's say we put a group together and we bring the money. We've got the money. That's great.
Great. Okay. I understand the question. So I've structured a number of joint ventures. I call that number 4 on our chart here. Okay. Yeah. Finding the money. Okay. Yeah. So guys like you, guys like investors can go and find the money. But when I'm structuring a joint venture, here's the 3 questions the money asks the joint venture partner. Okay.
All right, guys, get your notepads out. Here we go. 3 questions. Right. Hit us.
It's not just the questions, Neil. It's the order that you ask them in. Okay. So I've gone and raised $1 million. Okay. I want, and that's your business. Okay. You need to know how to do that. We can talk about that in a minute. But now you're looking for a joint venture partner. Okay. What I'm looking for my joint venture partner is really 3 things. Number 1, who's the guy? And the reason I'm joint venturing with him is because of his skill, his character, and his integrity. Okay. But in that order.
Character, integrity, and skill. Okay.
Yeah. Because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Nobody could have predicted interest rates would have gone up, right? Nobody could have predicted whatever's going to happen, right? So what happens when the partnership agreement doesn't contemplate some event occurring? How does that person behave under stress and so on? So therefore, you have to visualize yourself sitting across the table from this person 1 or 2 or 3 years down the road with some scenario occurring you couldn't predict, right?
Yes.
Who's the guy? Second is, where's the deal? Because if it's not in my geographic footprint, I'm not going there. It doesn't matter how good the guy is, right? So first, who's the guy? Then where's the deal? And then the third thing is, okay, now what's the deal? What's the hurdle rate? What are the returns and things like that, right? And those are projections. So when you're doing this, I think the people who are writing the checks, 10 guys are writing $100,000 check. Fair enough. And they're writing a check to you. They're counting on your ability to go find a deal. Okay. Yes. So what's your process? What's your criteria? And if you're picking a partner to work with, right? Because as the deal gets more complex and bigger, the skill gets higher. Okay. So the skill of what I think is the skill of raising money is one skill.
Yes.
And the skill of managing and maximizing a property is another skill. And as the deals get bigger, I think there's 2 different people doing them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Okay. So what I heard there is, when it comes to what's the difficulty is you've got 2 different people. You may be able to get the money. A group of us may be able to get the money together, but then the ability to find the deal and manage the deal is a whole nother.
It's a different skill
altogether.
Look, there's some people that can do both, But I
Yes.
think as the deals get bigger and more serious,
Yeah.
then it's probably two different skills, or some real estate guy with a good money guy behind. Then there's investor relations involved, right?
Yes.
Because if you do a good job, your investor is investing a fraction of his wealth into your deal.
Yeah.
He's looking to see how you do on this deal to put in
Absolutely.
more. And then when he makes
Absolutely.
money, he'll roll that into the next deal. So when I'm putting clients in deals, I'm talking about the developer's pipeline. Yes, they've got 2 deals now, but look at their machine. This is how they look for land. This is how they do planning applications. They're getting ready for 10 buildings, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of, like, the one thing I've learned is that wealthy people do not have a lot of time. Do they want to spend the time with some guy who's selling them and pitching them a deal, or someone saying, I don't think this deal is for you, but this one might be, right?
Yeah.
So I think raising money is about asking good questions, not making a slick presentation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I agree.
I would start with, tell me your story.
Yeah.
I want to know who you are. Tell me about your children.
Yeah.
Where do you see the dangers, opportunities, and strengths in your world for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? I want to have a good discussion with the person, and then I can direct them to an investment.
Yeah. I think a lot of people miss the boat. They're always saying, I get asked this question often, how do I find investors? How do I find investors? I can't seem to, and I'm always amazed how people don't take the time to really get to know the person on the other side.
Yeah.
Right? You're so busy thinking about what you can get that you're not actually thinking about where they at and what do they want in their life.
Right. Yeah. It's not the pitch deck that's going to get them on board. It's about understanding the client and matching them to the deal you might have, right?
Yeah.
And more about than you just talking about the deal. The reason that they're making the investment with you is because they believe you have the wisdom, the hard work, the fortitude to choose a right partner and get the deal done. They're buying you. They're not buying the real estate. They're not real estate people typically. Okay.
Yes.
Look, I've done a whole bunch of syndications, limited partnerships, and things like that. Nobody ever drives by the building. Nobody ever visits the asset. They just don't. That's just reality.
Right.
Nobody's ever taken me up on a tour, ever. Okay? They're betting on you. And then when you realize that, your presentation gets very different, right?
Yes.
One more last thing I'll say about it is if there's a group of people, if you get the leader, the other people will follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Good.
So you've talked about, in commercial real estate, you've got people that may have money, you've got someone else that needs to be able to manage it and do that. But it always seems like in commercial real estate, it's always some massive company that's doing that. Whereas with residential, you can get a lot more of smaller groups, people starting out, people that maybe have got limited experience, but they can get started on the residential side. Is it possible for someone new in the investing world to be able to get to the commercial side and start there, or should they really be starting with residential?
Well, but let's just create definitions here.
Yeah.
So when you say residential, you mean a house or a duplex or something like that.
Duplex, right? Fourplex, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that the first place I bought was 10 units.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was more than 2 units.
Yes.
Right. I actually lived in a triplex myself, which I bought and converted. And maybe if there's time, we can talk about the book I wrote called The Self-Funding House. But if there's time, so that was my start. I started with a triplex, where I lived in the basement as a single guy. I rented out the upstairs and the 2 other floors above me, except. But then I thought, man, I like this business, but I don't have the money to do it. So I went out and I raised the money, right? And I wound up buying 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings. Okay. Yeah. 4 buildings over.
What was that? What was that like trying to go out and raise the money? For that first go.
Yeah. Look, I didn't know what I didn't know. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think at some point, and I say this with with respect, but when you first start, you've got to fake it till you make it. Okay.
Right.
What they're buying is you, your character, your confidence, and a little bit of your bravado. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit. And I was making presentations in people's houses. I'd say invite a few friends over, but I noticed if I got the guy whose house we did it in, the other people got in the deal, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Actually, I had a funny situation just this past weekend. 4 guys were looking to buy a property. They're actually buying 4 properties, and they're trying to close, and they're delaying, and they one of the guys, who was a friend of mine, called me in and said, "Hey, can you talk to the guys? We're trying to make this decision." And so it was Sunday night at 8 o'clock. And I thought I was initially just getting called in to consult, to advise, and they called me in, and I'm on the Zoom, and they introduced me. My friend introduced me and said, "Here's Neil," and now all of a sudden I was the leader of the group, and I just said, "All right, guys, what's going on? It's 8 o'clock on a Sunday night. Are we doing this thing or not?"
Yeah.
And there were a couple of questions, but what was interesting to me about it was there were no further details that got conveyed, no facts, no instructions that got conveyed in that conversation. Literally, one of the guys was worried about what happens if something bad happens. And I was like, well, that's your job. That's why we make money, is we're going to get in there and make sure we do our due diligence, make sure things get done. But what was interesting to me was when it was also, and he jumped on board. And when it was said and done, I thought there was no further information that was added. Okay, here, we're going to structure this way, or here's how the legal process works. He was just concerned, and one person had to have the confidence. Yeah, exactly what you said.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
You still got to know your business.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So when I meet somebody, I ask them 1 or 2 really hard questions. And if they get those right, I assume they know the rest of the stuff. Yeah.
Right.
We're on the same page, man.
Well, I think it is funny to me, but I understand when someone is, someone's just starting out, they always want to have all of the details. They're afraid that they don't have all of that.
And they want to show every spreadsheet, and they want to show every yes.
And they don't realize that most people
selling confidence.
Yeah.
Good.
Oftentimes people want to know that the details. They don't necessarily want to know the details.
That's all they want to know, is that
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So you're getting in there, you get started, you start trying to raise some money, and what would you say are some of the early learning curves that you had in that process?
Sure. I would say to people, stay in traffic.
Ooh, tell us more. Stay in traffic.
Yeah. Stay in traffic means you read, you attend seminars. This works really well when you're young. You go and you ask older people to be your mentor. Okay. Yes. Look, I've had 7 mentors in my life. Some of them I never paid. Some of them I joint ventured with. Some of them I paid. But those 7 people have helped form me in my business life. Fair enough. I've also had personal mentors who've helped form me in my personal life. I've had spiritual mentors who helped me know Jesus better. You see my point?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So look for people who are way ahead of you, usually older, because they want to mentor. Right. Yes. Look, when I was in my 40s or 50s, and someone came and mentored me, I go, listen, I'm too busy. I'm in my mid 60s now. Someone comes to me and says, I want you to mentor me. I've got a lot of time for that person.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
I'm at the stage where I want to have a legacy. I want to share what I know and things like that. Right.
So let me ask this question about mentorship specifically.
Yes.
People are always saying, I can't find a mentor, or how do I find a mentor? And I've got some thoughts on it, but what would you say about, for someone that's trying to find
Yeah.
a mentor to help them in an area.
Yeah. Well, aim high. Don't get a dumbass mentor. Do you know what I'm saying? You need to get a top quality person. I would say I would look for someone who's written a book on the topic. Like aim high. Okay. You want to punch above your weight class. You might get a few no's, but aim high for your mentor.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, a mentor in 2 sentences can save you from a mistake. They can pick up the phone and call someone. I want you to help my friend Neil.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Look, I've had a number of mentors. A couple of times they said to me, Derek, I don't think you should do this. I thought I was smarter than them. I did it. They were right. Okay. So yeah. So I would just say for a mentor, like I don't know if there's a way to find a mentor, but number 1, be genuine. Okay. Number 2, offer to pay them. Most won't take the money even. Most won't even take the money, right? Offer to pay them, respect their time.
Yes.
They're busy people. Don't just go to them, well, what do you want to talk about? I got this problem. No. You go in there focused, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there's a path to finding a mentor other than maybe a little bit of luck too, right? Yep.
Yeah. Well, I part of what I would say about, in terms of finding mentors, you're going to have to talk to somebody. You're going to have to put it out there. You're going to have to ask people if they know people and get it out there. And what I find often from the people that I hear that say they can't find a mentor, they can't find a teacher. And what I find is oftentimes they're not actually prepared to be a student and be able to sit there and listen to that person, to really value.
I would argue that the mentor will sometimes spend more time than you do. So for example, I've mentored 15 young people in a medical school. It's my hobby.
Okay.
I help people get into med school. Okay. And I'm 14 for 15. So I've coached 15 and 14 have gotten in. And the best one never got in. That's the irony. The best guy, the brightest, because he wasn't a good interviewer. 50% of your score is marks. 50%. This guy was stiff as a board. Right? You've already got, look, you're not going to get into med school unless you've got good marks. Right?
Yes.
Typically. But you got to go, okay, Neil, what do they call someone who graduates last in med school?
A doctor?
Doctor. So once you get into med school, there's 100% chance you're going to graduate.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell these guys. Quit talking about your marks. You've got to have 3 interviewers here. You've got to get past those 3 interviewers and you're a doctor.
Yes.
So they spend 20 years getting high marks and then they prep for 1 hour before the interview and it's worth 50% of the mark. How much sense does that make? So I've got a whole process I put them through. I make them do homework. And when they come and meet me, which is usually on a Saturday morning, I say, come dressed like you'd come for the interview.
Right.
And while I'm interviewing them, I yawn. I go,
okay.
And they get all buzzed out. I said, well, wait, if you're the 30th person that's being interviewed by that professor, he's going to be tired. Don't let that yawn throw you off your game.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. So I love it.
Mentoring's good.
Well, med school? How did commercial real estate Derek Lobo get into?
I have 3 daughters, and one of them is a physician. And I think I wanted her to get into med school. Typical Indian parent, right? Got a doctor.
One's a physician, one's a lawyer, one's an engineer.
Well, almost physician, lawyer, and university professor for my 3 girls. But you know what it's like, Neil, right? Right. So yeah, but and she's very thankful now that I helped her. But I just created a process where I'd wake up every Sunday morning. I practice on video. This is 20 years ago, whatever, right?
Yes.
So then I realized that I enjoyed doing it. And then she started sending, and most of them are girls that I've coached because they just had friends who just heard about it, yada, 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 yada. But I'm not just helping anyone, okay? Getting to med school. I mean, we only have so much time and things like that.
Yes.
I'm, I mentioned I'm a good Catholic boy. Okay. I have a belief system. Okay. In terms of sanctity of life. And what I want to do is help people who believe what I believe, get into med school.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
The calling. That's what I
Yeah.
feel. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's tends to be a natural progression as you get older, wanting to be able to pass that on, wanting to be able to help others. And somewhere along the way you realize you can only help A, so many people, but B, you can only help people that really want the help on top of that, because
There
many
you
people
go.
say
There
they
you go.
want it,
Yeah.
but
Don't send me someone who's not motivated.
yeah.
Don't send
Yeah.
me someone who's going to come late for the meeting. Right.
Yeah.
And then Neil, and you're going to die. You can't, you're going to die. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's funny. I just been going through this process. If you leave all your money to a charity or to your children when you die, you know what you're doing? You're tipping on the way out. It's not even yours.
Okay. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
No, it
You're
wasn't me that
tipping
said
on
it.
the
It
way
wasn't me
out.
that said it. It's a
Okay.
guy named Bill Perkins who wrote this great book called Die with Zero. It says, you're tipping on the way out, man. So start giving it away now. Start spending it now.
Yeah.
It'll have much more impact than when you're gone.
Okay, you've got to talk a little bit more about this mindset. We're going to break into this a little bit, because most people think the goal is to make as much as you can.
Mhm.
And then hopefully later on in life, you're going to be able to enjoy some of that. But you're really pointing to, you've got to do,
And
you've got to
I'm
be doing
going to
something
just
along the way.
summarize this with a dear
Yeah.
friend of mine. He said,
Yeah, hit it.
earn as much as you can, give as much as you can, save as much as you can.
Earn as much as you can, give as much as you can, save as
much as you can.
Okay. Can you say more about that? Help us out. This seems like we got some real nuggets of gold here.
You should earn as much as you can.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a presentation. I have another hobby.
Yes.
And it's I go into high schools or to young people, and I have a speech titled God Wants You to Be Rich. Okay. And the reason God wants you to be rich is so that you can help a hurting world. Okay.
Yeah.
They talk about, there are a few workers in the vineyard. I believe there's many. There's more people. We need more people to support them. I've met some wonderful young people who do volunteer work, selflessly giving years of their life, but someone needs to fund them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I mean by sort of, give as much as you can and things like that. So,
yeah. I mean, I think oftentimes people sort of get the idea of earning as much as you can, and
everybody gets that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Although what's interesting to me about that is oftentimes it's very easy to see where someone has a block in terms of that earning idea, right? Like, talk to people and they can get an idea. Oh, I can make this much, but they can't imagine that they can make more.
Yeah. I think people say your first million is the hardest.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Your second million takes a few more years, not a lifetime, et cetera, et cetera. It snowballs.
Yeah.
And so on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, part of it is just the way the mind is trained. And I like to share the story with people about, if I ask my kids, if you needed to, could you make $10? And they'll say yes. Even my boys that are teenagers now, and they'll say yeah. Why? Because they know how to go out and shovel some snow. If you needed to, could you make $100? Well, they went out and they made $250 shoveling some snow. So they're like, yeah. And now if I ask my boys, can you make $1,000? They're like, and they kind of get stuck. I ask my daughters, who are a little bit older, and they, of course, will start thinking about a job. And most people will get there. And what I find is that most people then top out somewhere around $100,000 to $150,000, because the mentality is, well, I just don't know. How would you multiply anything beyond that?
Well,
and they got stopped.
I'd go back to your boys' example in shoveling the snow, and you can make more than $1,000 shoveling snow if you hire someone to shovel for you.
Yes.
And you just concentrate on getting the business.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Good.
Yes. Have you, in all of this stuff, have you ever had any times where, like you mentioned about going into a deal that perhaps you shouldn't have? And what are some of the lessons that you've learned?
Yeah,
Can you tell
well,
us a little bit about some of that stuff?
my life has been littered with failures,
Yeah.
right? And every failure has been a huge growth opportunity. Okay. So take the failure as fuel to
Yes.
put in the furnace. Okay. And I would
Yeah.
say that I've had both personal failures and I've had business failures. Okay. Which one do you want me to talk about?
Let's talk on the personal side. Let's hear a
Sure.
little bit more.
If I had to go back and live my life all over again,
Yeah.
okay, here's the 3 things I would have done differently. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 1, I would have got married earlier. Okay.
Okay.
My life from 20 to 27, I don't think I did anything meaningful. I was just a guy running around partying, blah, blah, blah. I didn't settle down till I got married.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. So
Yes.
number 1, I would have gotten married earlier. That's kind of countercultural to the way things are right now. But I
I'm
tell
with
you,
you.
man,
Yep.
I got my act together because I think my wife, who was just a good woman, straightened me out. I straightened out to be able to qualify.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So that
Yeah.
would be number 1. Number 2, and this is personally for me, I would have had more children. I would have more children. Yeah, the joy that my 3 daughters have given me, and the grandchildren that they've also now had, eclipses anything else I've had.
Yeah.
And I think that I would have had more children, right?
Wow. Yeah.
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 And then
that one resonates with me completely. Now I've had 4 kids, but I've talked with my wife. I said, for all of the fun that I have in this world of speaking, doing stuff in real estate, all of the fun that I have, I don't care, beaches, any of it. None. If when my kids have grandkids, when they start having kids, I was like, I don't know if there's anything that's going to top it for me, right? Like that's to me, that's right. Like,
you are correct. So that was number 2.
yeah.
Number 3 was pretty serious.
Okay.
Standing where I'm standing here now, about I think it's now 8 years ago, I had a heart attack in the office in front of a client. Right? I would have taken better care of myself. Right? So that's pretty tough. Have a hard time. Now I've smartened up and so on, but I didn't need to wait for that wake up call to have this happen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those would be the sort of personal things that I think I would do different. Probably buy less Nortel stock because it went to 0, but that's minor.
Yes. Would you do anything differently in terms of your career?
Yeah. It's funny. I sometimes think about the way my life has turned out. I felt blessed. We all should, just living in Canada. Yeah. And I go, I wouldn't want to make a different left turn because who knows what would have happened if I'd taken that left turn. But with that, as far as general advice looking forward, I would have taken more risk earlier in my career.
Yes.
I would have taken a ton more risk because I've realized that the failures were more important than the success I've had in life. They actually taught me more than success. Look, when someone's successful, you think you're a genius, blah, 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 blah. Timing could have been, you just could have been lucky, man. Right. So I think I would say that the 4th thing is I would have taken more calculated risk, good advice risk. I would have, managed the downside, whatever. But I think I would have taken more risk. And I'd say the 5th, I would have hired better people earlier.
Yes.
Rock and roll, baby. Those are the 5.
Yeah. I'm curious about your thoughts there on calculated risk. How does someone take more calculated risk? What would you say about that?
Look, the nature of risk is risk. Okay. But I would say that I would when I lost, I was not getting the wise counsel of other people.
Yes.
That would have either prevented me from just getting in that situation, or when I got in, it helped me get out faster.
Yes.
That
Yes.
would be what I would say. But look, we're if you want safety, then become a school teacher. Only 2 or 3% of people are actually wired to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
And let's thank
Okay.
goodness there's another 97% of the people who are willing to help us, right? So
Absolutely.
this is not, and that's the one realization I came to. This is what I've chosen to do. It is not for everybody.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs
Yes.
make that mistake. We think, oh, why doesn't everybody want it? Why doesn't everybody think like us?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I actually very much with what you're saying. I think people need to, if you're thinking about doing these types of things, I would actually advise most people against it unless you're prepared to be a little neurotic. I mean, to some degree,
Unless you're
there's
prepared to lose.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way to look at it. I mean, I to me, and I'm sure to you, there's a great deal of enjoyment in that process. There's, you talked about failure as fuel. You enjoy it because each time you come out, you're a little bit smarter to
You're
some
you're
degree.
you're actually a little bit sometimes addicted to risk.
Yes, yes. Uh, I didn't realize that how much ego even plays into that, right? Like you really do. Wow, that's interesting. Can you say more about that? You getting addicted to it?
Well, every time an entrepreneur finds himself in a lull,
Yes.
they go get into trouble again. As soon as I have time, I'm finding another thing to do. It's the nature of an entrepreneur. I love when an entrepreneur tells me he's going to retire. I just start laughing, right? I sold my business. 6 months later, he's opened another business.
Yes.
Yeah. And that you're going to be an entrepreneur till you die. That's my conclusion.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Done.
So done. Yeah,
Next topic.
absolutely. All right. So what keeps you motivated these days? What has you still inspired to have this kind of energy to stay in this space in
Well,
commercial real
yeah,
estate?
yeah, yeah. I think what allows you to keep your energy up is by doing your unique ability. And
Yes.
what do you really love doing? If I come to work and I've just got 5 things on my agenda that I love doing, it's not work. Okay. If I come to work and I do 5 things I hate doing, some operational things, some HR issue, meeting with my accountant, all the things that entrepreneurs don't like doing. Fair enough? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a great day. I work hard at delegating the things I'm not good at, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in a program called Strategic Coach with a guy named Dan Sullivan. Really has helped me.
Oh yeah.
One thing
Yeah.
Dan said is he said, if you work on your weakness, all you're going to have is a strong weakness.
Yeah.
So I delegate my weaknesses away.
Yeah.
And I work on what I'm good at doing. I work where I get to be. And what I like doing is like to be the opposite of what you like doing. So my job is to surround myself with people who love doing what I don't like doing, and vice versa. Make sense?
So what is it you love doing these days?
I'm a in front of the camera guy. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I love having a public presence.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I like speaking and I like selling and I like thinking about new ideas that fill the gap that are going to occur in the future. If I'm doing those 3 things, speaking, making complex sales presentations, and looking for gaps in the market, I'm a happy camper.
I just want to ask you in terms of in terms of seeing the next thing, what are your thoughts on AI that we're seeing, this explosion in AI right now?
Yeah,
Do you see that as a gap?
I've spent actually a lot of time talking about understanding AI. Just like it took me a while to understand blockchain, right?
Mhm.
That was hard. This is easy to understand, right?
Okay.
I just think AI is going to be dramatic. I don't think we know. AI is like the internet, man, right? Like we just didn't know how it was going to play out, and so I think it's early in the game, but it's going to affect a lot of things. And I think the people who don't stay up with AI are going to become a little redundant. But the good news is it's pretty easy to catch up. It's easy.
Okay.
That's what I'd say about AI. It's just going to come. It's going to be there. It's so simple. But I would get ahead of it. We're trying hard to stay ahead of it.
Yeah. So what gaps are you starting to see show up that perhaps you can let us in on that you're excited about?
Well, I think that the mistake people are going to make with AI
Yeah.
is they're going to produce content, but they're not going to promote it enough. See,
Okay.
everyone thinks just producing content is the answer. It's
Yeah.
not. It's producing killer. Look, if I had had more time, I would have written a shorter letter.
Okay.
Right? So
Yes.
gobs and gobs and gobs of content is just going to
Yes.
bore people, right?
Yes.
So write great stuff, have great graphics, promote the heck out of it. So AI can lead, I think, a lot of people down the wrong hole here, the rabbit
Yeah.
hole of saying, well,
Yeah.
look at all the content I can put up there.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to
Yeah.
read.
As opposed to thinking of the quality of what they're putting out and
And
its
the and
impact.
I would say the boldness, the creativeness, the
Yeah.
taking risk and saying something. If you say something wrong, no one's going to remember anyways. Like, don't worry about it. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit, just as we start to wind down here, tell us a little bit about your book, Self-Funding House.
Well, I'm sitting here at this point in my life, and I thought I want to do something that's going to be significant. Okay.
Okay.
And so this guy from Google Alphabet, his name is Astro Teller. There's this video talk on the moonshot. He talked about the moonshot is find a huge problem, okay, have a radical solution, and then use technology to solve the problem. So you take those three circles. When those three circles intersect, that becomes the moonshot. Okay. So I sit there and said, well, what do I know about solving a world problem? Well, I happen to work in an industry. It's a huge problem right now, and that's affordable housing. Okay. So, and this a whole process. So I wrote this book called The Self-Funding House. It's on Amazon. Okay. It came out last week. And the day it came out, it was the 94th best-selling book in the world. I don't know if you get a little badge for that, but it was number 94. Okay. Right. So it's a 2-hour read because I know people don't want to read anymore. And basically the book answers this question: how do my children afford a home?
Okay.
And the answer is they become landlords. Okay.
Yeah.
My first house was a triplex. I cut it up. I rented it, paid off the house quickly, and started doing it again. Right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, how do we create affordable housing? Well, it's not building a 40-story tower in the sky, which is going to cost $4,000. Putting in a backyard apartment, a basement apartment, a laneway suite, that'll cost $1,500. So you help. So if you do this gentle density, okay, which is what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
and now it's becoming possible to do from zoning bylaws and easing up and things like that.
Yeah.
If you convert your basement to an apartment, you can afford a bigger house, cheaper, blah, blah, blah. You can just afford one. You create affordable housing. It's green. We're not cutting down more forests. We're not putting in more roads, right? It's all there. All the infrastructure is there, right? And then the last part is I am a conservative by nature. I want less government in my life, right? Government. Yeah. So I want to say to the government, get out of the way. If 3 million, there's 7 million houses in Canada, okay, about, right?
Mm-hmm.
If less than half of those people put in basement apartments or garage apartments or back, we would solve the housing crisis, and we could, boom, no government, overnight. No subsidy. In fact, it's going to generate tax revenue because now you'll pay legal taxes on that duplex, which you should be doing anyways. The book is about the mind shift. Again, the mind shift is, how does a young person afford a home? And then the other point I make in the book is your first house is your first business. Those skills I learned in that triplex I had brought me here today.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about a mind shift.
So where does, you're in apartment buildings. Where do apartment buildings fit in?
Well, they absolutely fit. Look, this is the affordable housing problem we have. It's a global issue, right?
Yeah.
Is a multivariate problem. There's no one solution. These buildings in the back are part of the solution. Better financing is part of the solution. Better tax policy, gentle density, right? This is a huge problem. Huge problem. And I would say this, there is enough housing in Canada for everybody. Just like there's enough food in the world for everybody. It's just in the wrong places. There's 12 million empty bedrooms in Canada.
Right.
We got to find a way to sever those houses, cut them up, divide them up, and so on.
Yeah. We have to look at the problem differently than we are right now.
Exactly. Exactly.
I got that.
Yeah. Okay.
So what are you on to next? What are you excited about for the rest of 2023? Shall we say, Derek?
I think it's more of a personal goal. I've focused a lot more on my physical fitness, right?
Yeah.
On my mental capacity. I spend more time reading, more time watching YouTube videos, more time taking courses, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm focusing in a lot on my physical, mental, spiritual state, right? And then that just creates so much more energy to do the business work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and you can afford to do that later on in life when your business is running and you've got some money in the bank and so on, right?
Yeah.
I get it. You're running ragged when you first start up. I've done that, right?
Yeah.
It had
Yeah.
consequences for me. But now I'm at the place more where I'm focusing in more on personally, I would say I'm really not interested in stuff anymore. Like, I mean, look, I dress like you, that's not good. Okay. But what I'm interested in is experiences.
Yeah.
Experiences. Yeah. Relationships, experience, and things like that. Yeah. That's why I wrote the book. I'm not in the business of selling houses or duplexing houses, but I had some knowledge, I had some creativity, and I put it together in this. It's called, if you want to find it, the selffundinghhousebook.com. Okay. And it's available on Amazon. It's like $20, right?
Love it. Love it. Okay. So Derek, you've got the book out there. You're still working in commercial real estate.
Yes.
You're still mentoring medical students, and you're speaking more and more. Are you on social media, and how can people find you if you are?
Yeah, just Google Derek Lobo. I've got a Facebook, I've got a Twitter, got an Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Or go to our webpage, rockadvisorsinc.com, and that'll be and it's all there. Yeah. I'm pretty active on social media, and I kind of post what I'm thinking for the day.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. That's great. Well, Derek, thank you so much for coming on the show today, sharing oodles and oodles of wisdom with us. And we really appreciate you coming on today.
Good. Pleasure.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. This is another episode of the Leadership to Wealth podcast, and we'll see you again next week.